Welcome back to another episode of the Austin Zaback Show. If you're tuning in for the first time, I really appreciate you being here. My name is Austin Zaback, and I'm actually here with my best friend and my business partner, Brendan Gray. Okay, now, me and Brendan have done multiple different podcasts before. We've done a ton of content before. I think the last podcast that we did was actually like on my couch in my old apartment. And, every now and then we like to just sit down and just talk about, whatever we believe to be, relevant or good, valuable information that we can share with you. So if you're tuning in on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you would smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you have not already. And if you're tuning in on Spotify, iTunes, podcasts or anything like that, make sure to leave a 5-star review. So, Brendan and me are about the same age. You're a little bit older than I am. 27 going on 28. I'm 27 going on 24. And me and Brendan actually own multiple different companies together. So if you are like newer, I'll just kind of give you a quick recap. So we actually own a company called Cash for Houses.
Yep.
And that's the oldest company that we own together.
Yep.
One of the first companies that we started together. And we've been doing that, for almost probably
Seems like forever.
It seems like forever. It's been, I bet you, probably.
I think it's only been like 3 years.
Has it been 3?
Yeah.
Okay, 3. I almost thought it was going on 4, but somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Somewhere in that time range.
Yeah.
The last couple of years kind of screwed in my brain, you know what I mean?
Literally.
Yeah. So anyway, we own a company called Cash for Houses. We specialize essentially in wholesaling, but we also flip properties and we also own rental properties. So we probably wholesale well over 1,000 houses together, give or take, in the last couple of years, maybe, 800 or something like that. But we've wholesaled a lot of houses, okay? Nationwide. So we actually wholesale in Atlanta. We've wholesaled in Florida, North Carolina, Arizona, Vegas. We've wholesaled pretty much all over the country, all of the main markets at least throughout the country. Arizona obviously being in our own backyard. And then we actually own a company called the Zaback Group, which is our retail company where we, I believe, now have 30 agents or something like that?
Yeah, we're hovering right around there.
Right around 30 agents, okay. On track to do big numbers. We actually, at the time of filming this podcast, one of our agents actually just closed a $12 million deal,
Yep.
a retail deal.
She's killing it.
Congrats to Lily Keating, okay?
Yep.
And then we actually own a VA company in the Philippines, and we own a couple of other companies as well. We own a media company, and we're just kind of, I would like to say that we're serial entrepreneurs.
Right.
Real estate being like our main thing, though.
Yeah.
And what's that?
Being the backbone.
Real estate always being the backbone, and we both dabbled. You actually come, so I guess for people that are brand new, when I met you, you were doing synthetic turf.
Yeah.
So you're in the landscape kind of construction, right?
Construction world.
How did you get into that?
Through a buddy of mine, and he already had established this company, and he was just looking for partners, somebody to kind of help take that company and really focus on it, and it just kind of worked out. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Construction.
Yeah, construction. I mean, and I did construction years before that. It's a manually labor intensive, like hotter than heck.
It was a cool company, though. I do feel like through that company, we ended up learning about so many different, principles and really pillars in different industries, because we took that, just a landscape construction company and turned it into a product company. Mm-hmm. So we had to learn about logistics and, importing products and creating a product with, manufacturers overseas and stuff like that. So we both, my partner and I, we had a ton of experience, under our belt just from, building a little synthetic turf company.
Right.
We got a warehouse right in downtown Phoenix, filled that thing up with turf, clear to the ceiling, it's probably
I remember.
Did not fit OSHA, you know what I mean, at all.
Right.
But, had a carpet cutter in there, warehouse, had the forklifts swinging around and, with a big 14-foot pole on the side, to pick up this turf and we're a total liability, but it was fun, dude.
You made it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a cool company.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, you guys were really doing it big when I met you. I remember going into that warehouse and, and you know what I mean?
So funny.
And seeing everything. And you did a lot of the turf and a lot of the landscape for a lot of people that we still surround ourselves with today.
Yeah.
Including my actual own backyard, where I currently live right now. You helped kind of put that all together and get the subcontractors. Although you weren't in the industry anymore when I bought that house, you still had all the connections, Yeah,
that's what's so cool about it too. Yeah, we still have all those connections that we get to use every single day. And man, just like a really cool industry for sure.
Yeah.
A really cool industry.
Yeah, I believe one of our guys that used to work with us just proposed to his now fiance. We believe in. We should ask him. But in the backyard of a guy's house that you actually did the turf on, right? In Chris Hyman's backyard, where you did the turf.
Yeah.
So Cody proposed back there, which is really cool.
Yeah.
We were looking at it. You were like, I did that turf, you know,
Yeah.
which is cool, man. It's cool, you know, and that's kind of what I want to we want to talk about today, which is like, you know, really the journey of entrepreneurship, right? And like, you know, I feel like we just live in a day and an age, and you know, it's 2022 where, you know, everybody says they're an entrepreneur, you know.
Right.
Everybody puts it in their Instagram bio, right? Like, I'm an entrepreneur, you know? And I think that we've gotten that term kind of confused. You know, I'm actually kind of curious, like, what is the definition? Have you ever looked up the definition of, like, an entrepreneur?
You know, I'm curious what it's going to say. I'm really curious what it's going to say.
So if you look up the definition of entrepreneur, according to dictionary.com, it's a noun, a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. That's literally like the first thing that pops up, you know?
Right.
So like, you know, when you read that, I think it's really interesting, right? Because it's like, okay, business or businesses, right? So multiple, which is why you hear like the term serial entrepreneur.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, taking on greater than normal financial risk in particular, but risks in general, right? And, you know, you see a lot of people, I feel like in today's day and age, like even just to play off of that, where in my humble opinion, they say they're an entrepreneur, but they don't really take on much risk, right? They don't really go out and hire people.
Right.
You know, they don't have an office. They don't, you know, they say they're an entrepreneur, but they're really working from their living room. And I'm not hating, right?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at like objectively, you know, what are we actually looking at here, you know? And they're really, you know, like they got the Lamborghini, you know, or whatever, but it's like, dude, anybody can get a Lamborghini. I mean, you know, you can get a Lamborghini. We could take one of the people we pay, right? One employee that we pay a salary on and buy like probably 2 Lamborghinis for the monthly payment, right? And so it's like, and we've got, you know, 20 people on payroll, right? So, I mean, what could we, 40 Lamborghinis? I mean, what are we talking about here, right? But obviously we choose to take on that risk to build companies.
100%.
You know?
Well, you look at the entrepreneur and each individual entrepreneur, and there's such a wide spectrum these days. And it's, you know, important to point out that every single entrepreneur, they're going to want to go and create whatever life that it is that they want to design in their head. So for one entrepreneur out there, it's like, hey, I want to, and they might view them, maybe they are not an entrepreneur by true definition, because you look at the scale. Okay, you have business owners, right? You have an employee, you have, and so it's easy to kind of, you know, you can build a life that you design in your head these days, but you're still in a job.
Sure.
Right?
100%.
Because you are still, you know, you're your own boss, which is great. Like, that is a level up. And if you're able to be happy there, like, you know, Gary Vee, like, no, you know, like, absolutely, like, be happy there, right? And it's just dependent on the entrepreneur. And so, like, for me and you know, 20 Lamborghinis lined up in a row, or we build a massive behemoth of, like, conglomerate, you know, companies. And that's what it's about. It's where we have fun. And you take that financial risk, like,
you do,
you know. So a lot of people do, like, it's easy these days to have that $2,500, $3,500, you know, Lamborghini payment and think that you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, agreed.
You
Agreed.
know,
100%. Yeah, and I think, like, again, you said it best. You know, like, people got to do what makes them happy. I think that the issue that I see, right, if there was an issue with it, it's that the entrepreneur, and I think a lot of people are starting to talk about this, like the Gary V's, the Ed Milet's, the Grant Cardones, is that, and Gary Vee probably does a pretty good job, but it's that entrepreneurship has become like a glamorized, like people have overhyped it up for what it really is. And so, like, their expectations going into starting their company or starting to, you know, do whatever it is that they're pursuing are wrong from the beginning.
Correct.
So then when it takes them 10 years of freaking fighting and bleeding and falling down and getting up and falling down and, like, they're not,
The discouragement's too much to make it.
It's too much to handle, right? And so therefore they quit and they give up. And I think that's largely due to like social media kind of, portraying this like lifestyle where it's like that's not really entrepreneurship. That's a byproduct of what you can obtain after probably a decade or more of pursuing entrepreneurship, right?
Correct.
But that's not why I don't think, like, when you look at true entrepreneurs, like, the lifestyle is not, I don't think it's necessarily what drives them to do what they do, right?
Right.
I think it's simply a icing on the cake. It's like, I do what I do because I can't not do it. Like, I'm wired to do that, right?
Right.
And so for me, I can't, if I go on vacation for 5 days, I hate my life.
Right.
Like, I'm bored out of my mind, and you are
100%.
too.
Same way.
And we've done that before many times. Like, we went to Hawaii, and on the 5th or 6th day, we're like, dude, we got to get back, right? Because we're wired to build.
Yeah.
We're builders in nature, right? And so, like, we want to build, and the setbacks and the getting kicked in the face and kicked in the teeth and for a decade or more, right? And we were talking about that before the show. I mean, like, my first, I wish I had it here, but my first debit card, my personal first like bank account that I opened, it says on my debit card, I've been a customer of Wells Fargo since 2004. Right now,
Exactly.
I just turned 27, so do the math. We're in 2022. What is that? 18 years.
Right.
That's 18 years
That you've been funneling money into there.
That I've had a bank account, my personal bank account, right? And I'm 27 again. So, when I was 9, I had my first bank account where I was conducting business. I owned a pool company, right? And you were hustling at that age too. So it's like, and then here we are, 18 years later, and we still like aren't there. Like, we're not like, there is no there.
Yeah.
But like, we're still like, every day it's like, oh man, like, we just got kicked in the face again, right?
Yeah.
We got to keep going. We got to go harder. We got to go more. We got to reinvest. And so we're constantly like doing that, right?
Yep. It's driving for growth.
I feel like a lot of people, they would have already taken the profit and they would have ran for the hills.
And today you can do that, right? Like, you can do that. You can have your 1 or 2 person setup and wherever you want it to be. Virtually you can do that. But it's just like, if you want to build established businesses, that's still the same. It's still going to be the same, even to create that lifestyle where you have your desk at your house, and you have your home office, and you have your assistant who works virtually, and maybe they show up to your house and help you with things. Like, that's just, to get to that point is going to be an extreme amount of work. And so there's like a large amount of kudos like to that person to like get to that point. But it's like, even, to get to, the point where you have multiple employees, multiple companies, and, the multiple businesses, you're taking on extreme financial risks, right? And now you're qualified as like an entrepreneur. It's no longer just about you. And it's about all the different people around you. That ultimately you're responsible for.
100%.
And then so it starts to shift a little bit different. And then once you start like this monster, it's like, now you have this drive to just keep it going, to keep it growing, and keep it moving in a trajectory of like, upward. Yeah. Upward success, up the scale.
100%. So, which is a lot of pressure, right?
It's a lot of fun. And that's where, for me and you, it's like, we can't not do it, right? So
yeah, we're addicted to it, and I think that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Dude, I think there's so many ways that like people can become successful in 2022, right?
Yeah.
I think if I had like advice for younger people that were watching or listening, it would just be like, really make sure that whatever it is that you're going to pursue, like, what it is that you're pursuing, and you're not just like blindly, because we look at everybody's highlight reel, bro. On social media, everybody's looking at everybody's highlight reel. Like, oh man, look at the Lambo, look at this, look at that, look at the freaking iced out Rolex, look at the iced out AP. And it's, dude, it's just like, a lot of it's just not it. It's real, so it's not like these people are like faking that. A lot of it is real, but it's that we don't see the behind the scenes, or we don't see like the sacrifice they had to endure to get that.
Right.
We're just seeing the finished product a lot of times. And so we're comparing our maybe level 2, somebody else's level 10. Right. And it's like, well, you can't go from level 2 to level 10. You got to go level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then eventually you get to 10. Right. And I think that's where it's just like, dude, it's a mental game.
It is.
More than anything.
And you get to a point where you're an entrepreneur, and me and you could easily go out on our own, right? And individually and make tons of money, right? And so every entrepreneur is going to get to this crossroad, right? Where it's like, okay, do I build the team or do I continue to do everything by myself?
Right.
Right. And so you really have to, that's where you're going to get stuck.
Yep.
And you really have to make a decision of like, which way do I want to go? Do I want to build a life where in the long run I can help way more people and maybe even, allow myself to build other things, maybe that I am more passionate about now, or maybe, spend that time with my family, kind of build these companies to be like an asset, like whatever it is, and like buy your time back. Or am I going to kind of just do everything on my own? Obviously you can build like passive income things and eventually retire yourself from that job. But it's like I love building companies that create like and to eventually just become cash cows.
Yeah.
Like you want to create assets. Like I don't believe that you can create any better of a cash flowing asset than a business. And so once you gain the skill of creating businesses, scaling them, making them profitable, generating income from them, compare that asset to any other asset that you have, like real estate asset, whatever it is, it's going to outperform it.
100%.
Like,
Patrick Bet-David talks a lot about that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what do you think like that difference is? Because obviously you and me both know that like you can go fast alone and you can go far with people, right?
Yep.
But I think, in my opinion, it takes like a visionary to see that. Because you're now living in the future, because you're saying, okay, because to your point, right, it's like you get to that crossroad and it's like, okay, right now I could go as a solo real estate agent, for example, make $1 million a year, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
Or I can make $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
But in 3 years, I can make $5 million a year.
Yep.
Right. So it's like it's this like weird trade-off. Like what types of people, like who is it? Just somebody that's a visionary? Like how come some people pursue the behemoth, like they want the vertically integrated, they want to hire people, bring on people, build, and other people are cool. You see people, bro, like we were looking at a transaction last night and we were like, dang, that guy friggin' made a good amount of commission on a particular deal we were looking at, right?
Yep.
And
solo
it's
agent,
like, right? And it's like, you could be like a guy like that and close 5 deals a year, make 2-3 million a year.
Yeah.
Like what's the difference in human being there? I mean,
right.
In your humble opinion.
I think when we look at, like, again, we go back to like the spectrum of entrepreneur, like, or business owner, right? And then you have employee, right? And so and all the other things, right? There's like 4 things that essentially where you can land on like the spectrum. And so now today's day and age, and this is today, and I do believe this is actually going to shift now that the economy is shifting back, and like a lot of like leeway that like business owner to employee that's like kind of been like this relationship over the last few years due to COVID and a few other things. I do believe we're going to have shifting back with the economy changing and everything, like everything opening up, and but you have this spectrum with the way that things traditionally have been between business owners, employees, and that's changing due to technology. So now it's like like I say, you're confused that you think you're an entrepreneur, you think you have a business, but you have a job. And so you're your own boss, but how are you driving yourself as a boss? Like, are you a good boss?
Right.
Can you even be somebody else's boss?
Yep. Can you go on vacation and keep making money?
Yeah. And then that's the thing too, is like a lot of times it's like I talk to people, they're like, hey, Brendan, like, do I scale the company or do I do this on my own? Like, I really don't want to scale the company because I want to have my time. Well, it's like, when do you want to trade the time? Like, do you want to build the company so you can have the time later and the income, like you say? Because if me and you, if we decide to go to the lake in the middle of the day one day just because and go spin you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Spin 360s, we can do that because we're still making money.
Yep.
And we spent the time to set up the systems, processes,
but
and
we
people.
Spent over a decade.
17 years.
Each.
To do that.
To get
right?
there.
So 34 combined years.
Right.
Right. To make that happen of just sacrificing,
Agreed.
to be able to buy that time back. So it's just like a matter of like, it's almost like a time and convenience thing. So if like you want to just live in the moment now, I think a lot of people like you kind of mentioned, like the visionary is going to be thinking in the future, right? They're living in the future. I'm constantly like, as soon as I get something, it's like I never even got it because I'm already living in the future.
Sure.
Where it's like, hey, like, do I want to live in the moment now and go, put off building the business because I want to spend time with my girlfriend and build the family now? Or do me and the girlfriend work on the businesses together and like intertwine like and then eventually, you know what I mean? have that lifestyle where you can maybe, whether it is like now you guys go build a different business together that you're passionate about, or you can buy your time back. Like you can go on vacation forever, you know, if that's your dream. But that's the thing is too, like, I guess to drive my point home is with technology, you can design it however you want. And there's no right or wrong way, right? It's just like, what's your dream? Like, what's your goal? And I like for me, I want to build big companies, and it's not about me. I think that's like another thing is like you say, it's never going to be for that entrepreneur who does go down the route of like build the companies. It's like, it's not about the dollar. It's not about the bottom line. Like generally, like obviously everybody wants to make money, but not short term anyway. It's about helping, you know, it's about building things.
Agreed.
Helping people, changing lives, changing the world. Like at least we want to feel like we do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
And we go out there and we you know, really try to like spread good.
Yeah.
You know, and so like I think that's the difference versus the person who's like, hey, I just want to go do my thing, and that's fine. Like there's no right or wrong way. But my thing is this. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Yeah, and I think that's another thing too is like people. You know, you got to be like, I heard this somewhere. I think it might have been Patrick Bet-David, but he's obviously a legend, right?
Absolutely.
And he was talking, I think, one time about like, hey, like whatever you want, like don't feel bad about it.
Right.
Like if you're cool making $100,000 a year, like Tim Ferriss, I think, wrote a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. I think, was it Tim Ferriss?
I think so.
I think it was.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like if that's your jam and you can get on ClickFunnels and make a landing page on your MacBook and go to Bali, Indonesia and make $100,000 a year from affiliate, like amazing, right?
Incredible.
But embrace that.
That's amazing.
Embrace that.
Yeah.
I think the issue becomes is when that guy or girl
compares
then
to the
compares
guy who has the company, has the yacht, has the thing, and then it's like
exactly.
Yeah.
Or the guy with the company's comparing to this guy, wishing he had that level of freedom, but he signed up to go build,
to go do all this,
to go do all that,
right?
And it's like you really got to be careful. It's like, hey, whatever you choose, like you chose that, like you said, it's like that was your decision to make. You know, it's like nobody put a gun to your head and said,
be like,
here's how you
right.
You know, shifting gears a little bit. I think like you made a good point with the economy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, and I'd love to get your thoughts. Like it's not something we've talked about a ton, but like, you know, 2020 was the first like quarter of 2020 was weird.
Yeah.
But then right after that, essentially, you know, the economy just went straight up.
Right.
For like years and years. And I almost think like money for so long has almost been like easy to make.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, you could be anybody and make money. Like you could be just a homeowner, not even trying to make money. And you made $300,000 just by owning your home.
Yeah.
Right. And that applies, I think, to a lot of people in the world.
Yeah.
And I think we're now entering slowly an economy where I think
that's changing.
You got to have skill now to make money. We're at least approaching that, right?
Yes.
Where I think a lot of people before that might have gotten lucky or just been at the right place at the right time, owned the right, you know, poop coin, you know what I mean? Like, you know.
That thing ain't worth what it was.
You know? You know, like, in your opinion, how does that affect, like, what does that look like? I mean, you know, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, are we going to see, you know, another transfer of money, like of wealth, like where the people that maybe didn't have the intelligence to maybe earn what they earned because of the economy was just so good, like maybe that money starts to dwindle and goes to the people who have the skill to make that kind of money in a down market. I mean, what do you think?
100%. I think even if I'm thinking about this right now. I think if you looked back into like our old podcast, I might have referenced this before. Like we were definitely in a time of like where it was like a fairy tale, like easy money making world. I think Americans like overall got like a little bit lazier over, you know, and I hate to say that, but it's like money was easier to make, money was handed out. The reason the economy skyrocketed up is because there were moves made by the federal government to lower the interest rates to allow the economy to do what it did. And they gave out a bunch of money like across the board to business owners like myself and you. You know, if you're a big business owner, you benefited big time from all the money that was given out. Yeah. And so you had gigantic, you know, rich people who, you know, wealthy people who benefited from it. You have people who were, you know, able to not work and benefit from it on a lower end of that scale, as far as like the economic. You know, and I'm not like an economist, but I do like to say that, you know, the facts and the things that I study are pretty, you know, notable, or, you know, citable, you know, like good
information,
sources, right? You know, I like to study like Ray Dalio and stuff like that. Patrick Bet-David. And so like these are kind of like the guys that I'm following. And like I think that we're definitely going to be shifting into more of like money's not going to be as easy as it was to make before. I do believe it's going to be more of a requirement to be working physically in places. Like, so the business owner who didn't pull off the gas of like, I don't know, having people come into the office and, actually being able to tangibly like put hands on them and see what their production is and like know what they're doing on a day-to-day basis and being able to drive that hands on and like physically every day. I think they're going to have an advantage going back into this economy over the person who kind of was like, hey, like give my, my virtual person, like whatever, and, basically allow them to do whatever they want. And I think that through money being not as easy to make, I think it's going to be harder times just in general.
Agreed.
Right. And therefore, you're going to have more and more people with a higher skill set available as business owners fail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, it's just a fact of the matter. Like, I was watching the other day, like Nordstrom's went out of business during the pandemic. Like the very big companies go out of business all the time.
Yep.
And when we look at a market shift like this, I don't think people are really prepared for like the ripple effects that it's going to have in like retail economy. And if you're not prepared to like capitalize on this in a certain way, like it's going to be a hard time. And so like 90% of the people out there aren't ready to, that are employees, right? They're really going to have to step up their game. Like whatever it, to get that raise, step up their game to be able to elevate, like whatever it was from before, because whatever they were able to get before, I don't believe they're going to be able to get now
100%.
as we start shifting into an economy where money is more scarce.
Yeah.
Because the business owners are going to tighten their purse.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And like you say, like Ray Dalio, I've listened to a lot of Ray Dalio lately. I think he's the one that said recently, like, look, like the reality of it is, it's just math. Like when you go into a down market, people will have misfortune.
Yep.
And there will be somebody there to capitalize on their misfortune, right?
Correct.
So somebody will get rich on somebody else's misfortune. It's just the way it goes. It sounds bad, but it's just how the world works. It's how a capitalism market works, right? That's kind of the point, and it's like, and even Warren Buffett says, when people are greedy, you want to be fearful. And when people are fearful, you want to be greedy, right? And it really is that concept of exactly what you just described of like, okay, a lot of people that maybe made their money too easily, maybe they're not worthy of that money. And if there is a misfortune, somebody that's more worthy will outsmart that person to create some sort of product or service in the new economy that we're approaching, that we're heading towards, to get those funds, into
the proper hands.
Right.
Because the money always knows,
100%.
right? Like the money knows who's handling it, right? And the temperature thermometer of like what that person can handle. And that's, we're going to see a big shift here on, the management of that and who is able to manage it well. And then now who's going to be able to capitalize on it properly. And a lot of companies aren't going to be able to do that. And a lot of people are going to be, the misfortunes are going to happen. And it's unfortunate like to say, but like people are going to lose their jobs. Like, and for business owners who have the right, game plan, now they're going to be able to go out there and get that talent now that they weren't able to get over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk, a lot of big companies, Elon Musk just laid off 10,000 people like 2 weeks ago, all blue collar. He has 100,000 total employees that work. That's just Tesla.
Holy crud.
He laid off 10,000. So he laid off a tenth of his 100,000 blue collar employees. And that was in reaction, without getting too much into politics, but that was in reaction to, a lot of the political things happening right now, right? And Elon just wasn't thrilled about it. And he said, well, in reaction to that, like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go lay off 10,000 of my blue-collar employees. So not the people putting the nuts and bolts on the cars, but the blue-collar people, right? The people that are in the office, doing whatever their role was.
Working virtually, right? They're working from home, and they're making $80,000 a year doing half the amount of work, right?
Exactly.
And Elon's like, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
He's way ahead of the curve.
100%. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and I think going into a bear market, I guess, is what, you would think that we're probably heading towards. It's what we're seeing, at least, right? You've got to be liquid. You've got to have you've got to be ready. I mean, not only mentally, but financially, your credit, right? Your relationships with your banks, And you've got to have, that,
and
credit.
good working business
Yeah.
relationships too, right? And that's, I think, important too, like for the guy who's like going solo, right? Because while you're thinking about like veering off and just, I can do this all on my own.
Yep.
Well, like, what about now?
Right.
Money's not too easy to get right now.
Yeah.
And it's like the fulfillment's not going to be as easy.
Sure.
Right. And so you're going to have advantages trying to build a small business right now. But, say you spent the last 2 years burning bridges and now you're going to need those bridges to like, it would have been useful to have those bridges now.
Never burn a bridge.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. I mean, and like you said ripple effects. Any changing market will have ripple effects. I think if we are heading towards a bear market, look at like people selling Amazon stores or whatever. I mean, it's like not everybody has 30 grand anymore. I mean, like there's these little ripple effects that go through, the economy and through society where you don't really think about it, but it's like, okay, if everybody's stock portfolio is down, cryptocurrency's down, everybody's 401ks are down, real estate's down eventually. I mean, that causes issues on the day-to-day, right? And there's a lot of issues. I mean, you could talk about it forever. I saw a meme yesterday, gas is like $10 a gallon in certain places in California.
Right.
It's like, I mean, inflation. But I mean, so yeah, dude, I think that right now, like if somebody's watching or listening, they're an entrepreneur, like what are some things that they could do like today to prepare for like the upcoming market?
So today, like you definitely want to have cash. And so like cash is king over the next couple of years, up 5 years, because we're going to see a lot of really good buying opportunities. So like, especially over the next like 6 to 12 months, I would be hesitant on like, and really like, obviously you can buy like little increments of, stocks and stuff like that. Right now is probably a great time to buy a lot of stocks, but I would focus on building up your cash pile, and being patient for those good buying opportunities, because this really is, and especially with it also being an inflationary time, the only few assets are going to be going up. So you're going to want to put that into real estate as those become, basically they become more readily available for you to get good deals on it. And so, you just want to have
be
cash.
liquid,
Yeah, you want to have cash so you
don't
can
be over leveraged. If you're over leveraged right now, you need to look at that, I think.
Yeah.
And you need to figure out, okay, and you saw that in 2008, right?
Yeah.
With the financial crisis in 2008 where, the banks called a lot of notes, and not that that exact occurrence will happen again, but I think, it is crucial that like, don't be over leveraged. And I mean, I'm not even talking, your boat and your car. I'm talking like real estate even. Like, what,
be careful.
Yeah. How much like I see a lot of people where because, you'll see people nowadays where it's like, I own 100 rentals.
Yes.
And it's like, well, what's your debt to income, or what's your debt to loan to value on all that, right?
Right.
Like, and it's like, oh, you owe 98%, and like, you know what I mean? It's like, well, then do you really own 100 rentals? I mean, like, or does the bank own 100 rentals? And
I think positioning yourself within the right industries too right now are going to be super important. So like, thankfully, I do believe like the people who are positioned like within the real estate industry and, specifically like different markets, like right now you might get a little bit wicked out, but like, again, I'm not an economist, but I think that real estate is still going to be an extremely, that's the asset class that you want to be invested into right now.
Agreed.
Obviously you want to be careful on like your loan LTV, like, if all of a sudden you're in an area where you're extremely over leveraged and gets hit really hard on like, you're in like maybe a B or C class like investments, and now your clientele is not paying your rent and it's not covered by the government, and like now you all these payments are owed, and then all of a sudden you're in big trouble, right? So you do have to be careful, but if you position yourself and align yourself like from a business standpoint, like make smart real estate investments. Obviously, make sure you're purchasing at a good discount. Make sure you're buying, underneath, your LTV is underneath, in order for you to get like long-term financing, you're going to have a good LTV anyways. But just unless if you're buying a bunch of personal properties like over and over and over again, and you're like, doing sketchy stuff, like you want to really be careful.
Yeah.
But
grow the mindset too, I think, right? Like, is something anybody can do at any given time. You're studying the Ray Dalias, the Patrick Bet-Davids, whoever, but learn. Learn. I think people, and unlearn. I mean, like, and I made a post about that recently where it's like, you might have to unlearn some stuff before you learn some stuff, but like you gotta acquire the right information, right? It's not just acquiring as much information as you can. It's acquiring the right information from the right people who have, capitalized
Yep.
on, bear markets and stuff before, right?
Right.
And again, nobody knows where we're headed. Like our prediction is that we're headed more towards a bear market, right?
Yep.
We have no idea at the end of the day. Nobody has any idea.
Yep.
There is no crystal ball,
Right.
right? But like if history repeats itself,
Yep.
we're due for a bear market.
Yep.
And that's like to keep it really simple, right?
Yep.
Obviously,
Yep.
there's a million variables.
Yes.
So it's like just be prepared. Be prepared mentally, financially, from your credit standpoint. That's your report card for life.
Right.
And yeah, man, I think it's just about also being nimble. I think like being able to be quick to make adjustments. I mean, I think a lot of people they get. They're dinosaurs. They get so in. You see agents that have been in a real estate agent for 30 years, and they've done one thing. And it's like that one thing might not work in the future. Like, and that applies, I think, to anybody. Where it's like, hey, if you're a dinosaur, you've got to be nimble. Yep. It might require you, a different market might require you to make change, right? And if you can't make change, like for example, before, what happened in 2020, I don't want to say it because I don't know how YouTube feels about it still, and monetization, right? I won't say the name, but before the whole worldwide thing went down, right? It's like, basically hedge funds weren't that big of buyers. I mean, at least like not everybody talked about it, right?
Yep.
So, most wholesalers and people sold to flippers and landlords and mom and pop and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then out of nowhere, a lot of big hedge funds got in the market, right?
Yep.
And if you weren't nimble, then you just learned that right now.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like on this podcast, like you're like, oh, hedge funds are buying.
Right.
And now it's like we're on the tail end of it, right? So I think it's like, not really, but you know what I mean? Now it's like, okay, it's that same concept looking at every industry as a whole.
Yep.
And it's, how nimble are you? Because, if you were nimble, then you realize in the moment, oh, wait, there's a shift happening.
Yep.
We're going to go make all of our money over here.
Right.
Right? And if you were dinosauring your ways, you kept doing the old.
Yep.
And the old wasn't as profitable.
Yep.
Right? And so I think that applies to every industry.
100%.
It applies to everything that anybody could be in. And it's like, be nimble. You know?
You got to pivot.
Yeah, you got to pivot with the time.
It's always, and constantly.
Yep.
Especially
going into a potential softer market, because a softer market will require you. Look, like there's people in our town right now that have billboards everywhere and this and that and the other thing. They spend a lot of money on marketing and advertising. And I'm not going to name names, but I know that there's certain things that aren't going to work in the market
methods
that we're coming into, right?
Right.
And so it's like if you're not nimble,
Yeah.
then you're going to go broke real quick.
Yep.
If you keep taking the same budget that
Right.
worked
In
6 months ago
bull market,
the bullish of markets, right?
that you've ever
With
seen.
3,500 listings
Yeah.
on the market.
Yeah.
And you take that same ad spend and the same marketing and the same tagline and the same everything.
Triple the inventory.
Quadruple the inventory,
Right.
20,000 listings now.
Yep.
And use that same marketing, your numbers are going to look
Leave
way
that
different.
unattended.
They're going to look way different.
Yeah.
And not in a good way, I can't imagine, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be nimble.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. You always got to pivot. Like, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if people make the moves that they're going to make over the next few years. And, if you are, just because you're in the real estate industry too, it's like the world might crash around like the real estate industry too. So it's like, and that's kind of like what I think is going to happen a little bit. Is obviously we're going to get more inventory in some places and it's going to, like you say, slow things down. But yeah, it's like about like, man, like align yourself in the markets that are going to make the money right now.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. And even taking what you said, even literally too, like the markets, like throughout the country, even right. Like I think you see people that are like, oh, I'm gonna go buy a rental in Ohio.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what is the future of that particular submarket, as opposed to what's the future of like a Phoenix submarket?
Yep.
Right. Or it's like looking at like an LA, versus a Miami.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot different, right? In the next 10 years for those particular markets, one would assume that people are leaving objectively
Yep.
LA, and objectively they're coming to a place like Miami. I'm not saying they're going from LA to Miami. I'm just saying those markets in general, one place people are moving into and one place people are moving out of, right? Things like that are going to affect you, I think, in the market that we're moving into, right? It's like we're in a market in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Mesa, all that, where people want to live here.
Yep.
And people are going to want to live here even if we are in a bear market.
Yep.
Right? So sure, we're going to have more inventory like you said. All that might be true.
Yep.
But people want to live here still. So, it's going to soften the blow if there were a blow across the country, right? For somewhere like where we're at. Right. As opposed to if you're somebody, that's heavily involved in a market where, that market might get hit way harder going into a potential bear market, 100%. Right? So I think it's just being cognizant. It's like being aware.
Right. Placing your eggs in like a safe basket.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phoenix is an interesting one. I think we're still going to go up even though everything is kind of, you look at the numbers of, and technically we have drastic, amounts of listings. If you look at, percentages, hitting the market. But it's like, I think we're going to see increases here still. Yep. I don't see, like you say, you mentioned hedge funds, like they're not going to pull off of like a market like Phoenix, Arizona. There's only a few real estate markets like our market.
Sure.
Here. When you look at the population, you look at real estate age, and then you look at like how is the area affected from weather?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, is my asset like protected? You look at a place like Florida, a hedge fund might slow down on buying there, right? But there's certain areas where big companies are moving to, and they're going to double down.
Agreed.
And so it's like if you can align yourself with that, and like join up with a team who's aligned in that, or in a business or a service or some way where you can align yourself and where the money is shifting and where the money is being spent, there's always going to be a buyer. There's always, property's always going to trade. And I do think that some of the people like in our market today, like in Phoenix, Arizona, like everybody's pulling off of buying. But there's one guy out there who's like, oh no, like I know 100%. That I've seen this trick 100 times because we've seen this during COVID last time, right? 4 weeks, everybody was freaking out. The world's ending. Like, I'm not going to buy anything. And then you have a few select people that are like, if you're going to give me like this deal at this price, like I'm going to buy it and I'm going to make the money, when everybody realizes it's like, what's the status quo today? And I think like everybody's kind of was able, I think we were in an inflated hot market. Like I don't think it was as hot as what everybody thought. The interest rates being low, it allowed the narrative to make sense. When I spun it to you as a real estate agent with a listing that says I have all this activity on my listing, it makes sense because 200 people are moving here today that can get a 2% interest loan, blah, 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 blah. Today it's 5%, and now the status quo between lenders, appraisers, realtors is that now it's slower. But if I listed a house last July, it isn't any slower than it is today. It was slow as it is, or it's the exact same amount of slow.
Probably, yeah.
Last year as
the
it
perception's
is today.
Different. The talk, the chatter.
Exactly. Yeah. What are you conveying? And are you like acting ethically as like a real estate professional?
For sure.
Obviously, the answer is 97% of the time, like for other people, is no.
Couldn't agree more.
I do believe that like now, the people like myself who were at the time were like, listen, like telling my clients, there's nobody buying your home. You have one offer. We listed all weekend, 72 sold, is not happening. You know? And it's like, so I'll tell my clients the way it is. And there's more and more realtors now today like me who can't ignore it when the Cromford report is telling you, here's how it is.
Right.
So you can't hide the scam almost anymore, which is what honestly was, I believe, like, going
a big
on,
part
like
of it.
A big part of it. It's a big like
we have 50 offers. We got 900 people. Give me your highest and best.
And then you're all of a sudden you're negotiating against yourself. As a real estate wholesaler, like I'm telling our acquisitions guys, like, bro, you're bidding against yourself. Make the low offer and get the call back.
100%.
You know,
I agree.
So.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be interesting, man. I think I'm really excited. And I think any entrepreneur, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, that is a real entrepreneur that's in it to win it. They really, they'll go through thick and thin. They have grit. They have resilience. Any real entrepreneur should be excited about the market changing.
Such an opportunity.
It's a huge opportunity, and I think the opportunity is just going to get greater over the next, like you said, 6, 12 months, even 24, 36 months. I think we have a couple of years actually where, and again, nobody knows the exact timeline, but we have a couple of years where I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
You weather the storm of this, this little, times here, and this could last 1 to 2 years, whatever.
Yep.
And even during that, it's like, man,
dude, it's gonna be.
I'm
amazing.
excited for it.
I'm beyond
I've actually
excited.
been kind of like waiting for this.
We've talked about it for a long time, and everybody kind of knew like eventually it had to come.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, what we were experiencing for so long wasn't healthy.
Yep.
Nothing can appreciate that quickly. Things we're
Sustainable.
totally unaffordable.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to have a little bit of balance
Drawback
to the
on
market.
that.
Yeah. So I think it's really healthy in certain ways. I think how we got here is really unhealthy, but anyways,
Right.
that's besides the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I love our talk today.
Yeah.
I think that, it's a phenomenal talk for any entrepreneur listening, just having the grit, having the resilience, if you're an entrepreneur starting young, understanding what an entrepreneur really means, being able to take that risk. If you're really an entrepreneur, know that, hey, you can go fast alone, but you can go far with people, and eventually if you want to go far, you've got to get phenomenal people around you. You have to build a team.
Yep.
You have to understand how to be a good leader, how to build a good culture.
Yep.
A lot of that you do through trial and error, and that's what we've done for many years. And we've failed miserably, 100 times, and we'll continue to fail,
Yep.
but we'll fail forward
And fast.
And fast. And that's all that matters, So with that, Brendan, I appreciate you being on, brother.
Thank
I know
you. It's an
that,
honor.
it was a phenomenal,
Always fun.
phenomenal
Always
little
fun.
deal. People, you guys, if you are watching, I so appreciate you watching. You can find Brendan on Instagram, I believe at Brendan J. Gray.
Yep.
Like Christian Grey, okay? Go look him up. Go follow him. He's my business partner. He's an absolute rock star. We're just excited to, provide as much value as we possibly can. So again, if you're watching on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever, leave a 5-star review. If you could, that would be so much appreciated. If you're on YouTube, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below if there's any other topics. Our topic today was like entrepreneurship, the market, all of that kind of stuff. But me and Brendan are really open. We'll talk about anything. So let us know. Shoot us a DM. Shoot him a DM. And we'd love to sit. By the way, it's our new podcast set. So we'd love to come in here literally whenever and film for you and provide as much value as we can. Brendan, that's it, bro.
Thank you so much, man. It was a ton of fun.
Tons of fun.
Tons of fun.
We'll see you guys in the next one.